You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
I'm Katrina, and I love anime.
I'm Steven, and I'm aware of anime.
But what if that affection could rub off?
Perhaps that excitement in her eyes got me curious.
I could offer up some solid anime.
I could give them a watch, just to see what all the fuss is about.
And maybe, just maybe,
I could learn to love anime too.
welcome to Inspired by a Weeaboo. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Inspired by a Weeaboo. I am your host Katrina, and with me is my husband Steven.
Hello.
We just finished episode 40 of Fullmetal Alchemist. Steven, what did you think?
Ooh boy, things are amping up. I can definitely see we're in the end game now because things are starting to come to light.
Yeah.
This was it's kind of a devastating episode if you think about it, because there was quite a few things that happened, and I'm kind of with Scar now.
Yeah.
A lot of what was done up to this point, we really didn't know a lot about him and just thought he was kind of being a dick. But after seeing how the events kind of went down, I can kind of sympathize, and I'm not 100% not on his side anymore. You know, it's just like, yeah, I'm kind of with you. So, breakdown of the episode, we're picking up right where we left off in the last episode, where Marta is attacking Kimbley and trying to avenge the death of Greed. Was it?
Well, he didn't kill Greed, but basically, he is the reason that she lost her entire group of friends slash her family, because Greed and the other Chimeras were basically, they were family. But yeah, if it wasn't for the fact that Kimbley betrayed them, you know, they might have survived, or at least more of them might have made it. But because of his betrayal, after they not only rescued him, but took his ass in, you know, yeah, she's out for blood.
Yeah. So, but as she kind of holds him knife point, getting ready to kill him, he reveals to them that he is a state alchemist, or he is now reinstated.
He is reinstated.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which just kind of pisses her off even further. And Kimbley, what does he say to Al? He kind of, I guess, manipulates whatever he says to him to kind of distract him into stopping Marta. I can't remember what he said specifically.
Are you going to let her kill me?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the Elric brothers, Ed has technically killed somebody, but at the end of the day, you know, they don't want to kill anybody. They don't really want to hurt anybody. And I mean, you're still talking about a 14-year-old child.
Yeah.
So, you know, he cares for Marta, and he doesn't want to see Marta, you know, sully her hands or get some type of revenge, because then, you know, it's just going to make her just as bad as the people she's trying to kill and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, he doesn't want to see her kill somebody in the name of vengeance or whatever, or in general.
So as Al kind of steps in to stop her from killing Kimbley, despite his feelings on the matter, I'm sure, Kimbley takes that opportunity to use alchemy on a soldier nearby and kind of uses him as a weapon, which is a really dick move. And Al kind of holds Marta, but as he kind of chucks the body, she breaks free and takes off. And Kimbley kind of starts bitching at Al for helping her in the first place, since she's a chimera and whatnot. But Al's like, fuck you. And does whatever he has to. He uses transmutation to, what does he do? It was like to make some stones or something like that.
Yeah, kind of. You see them use this type of alchemy quite a bit in the show. It's kind of like a defensive alchemy. Well, defense / tack, because it's not only to kind of throw your opponent off, but hopefully to land a blow. But he wasn't ramping up to technically land a blow, because he knows how Kimbley works, basically.
So pretty much he uses alchemy to kind of create some stones that allow Kimbley to transmute, and then at a certain moment, then he then creates like a giant wall around him, kind of causing his alchemy to kind of backfire onto himself, and his arm is injured in the process. And Marta didn't go very far, did she? Or had she gone that far at that point? I know he was wanting her to get away, and I think he was pleading to Mustang that
because Mustang and them,
they
Mustang
arrived.
and his little, not his normal people, but kind of those background characters showed up.
Right. So he's just trying to argue in favor of her getting away, while Mustang is like, this is his jurisdiction now. He's in charge, and Kimbley needs to do a formal complaint against Al, which but Kimbley says that he's just gonna turn Al's armor into a bomb next time they meet, and just storms off like a little bitch, because that's what he is. Then we cut to Central Command, and Fuhrer Bradley is deciding he's gonna go to where everybody's pretty much congregating right now. Real, is that it?
No, Lior.
Okay, Lior. I don't know why. Real. Anyway, Lior. I'm honestly starting to think that some of this stuff that I look up is incorrect, or they get wrong information.
Well, I mean, they're right outside Lior, so it technically might be a different town, but that's basically where his end game is to go, is to Lior, because that's where the quote unquote rebellion is striking up, and Rose's people are, fighting against the military, blah, blah, blah. But obviously we find out later on that that's not really all that true.
So he's planning on going there to kind of hopefully suppress the uprising, if you will. And he assigns General Hakuro to be acting Fuhrer in his stead. Which I don't ever remember this character prior to this, but he was just like all excited, and I felt like that would have been a better moment had we gotten to know this character a little bit more. I don't remember him, but he was just like, "Oh yes, I finally did it! I'm Lieutenant Fuhrer, woo!" And then gets caught. Anyway, but as we kind of find out, he is actually heading there to destroy this town, Lior, with Sloth and Wrath. Meanwhile, we cut back to Ed, who we last saw confronting, he actually got found by Scar. Was it? Right?
Yeah, he was walking through the crowd when he spotted Rose, as the maiden or whatever in the heck they're calling her. And Scar kind of comes up behind him. Or no, sorry. He kind of walks up, and then Scar kind of, touches him and is like, hey. Like he recognized Ed, even though Edward was in disguise.
So they start kind of going at it for a minute, and as they're fighting, Al kind of admits that he's learning from Scar's attacks and what he's capable of, and he's having to kind of shift his tactics to try and throw him off, which I never thought about it, but that's what he has been doing. He's been utilizing, like he knows the composition of what things are, and then he can transmute that. So if he doesn't know what it is, then he can't transmute it. Therefore, that's what Ed is trying to do, is throw him off. So if he doesn't know what he's transmuting, then he can't lock in on it, which is a very clever tactic. But while he's trying to do that, and even points out that it's a very I guess what's the word here? Not a bad, like a dangerous tactic or a bad tactic, but he can't keep doing transmutations on his arm because it's going to ruin the composition.
Yes, it's like it's compromising the arm overall,
right,
by changing it to different metals.
So it's just something temporary until he can work out another tactic, or hopefully beat him down quick, which is his plan. It's just like, I'm just got to make this quick. But as luck would have it, or unluck, depending on how you look at it, Lust and Gluttony appear and kind of catch Ed's blade mid-swipe. And I don't know if his intention was to kill them, but I know he recognized them as homunculi, so maybe he was just trying a distraction tactic where he transmuted some pipes and some steam, just boiled their skin clean off.
But yeah, I think he knew that it wasn't going to kill him. I think it was more just to slow him down.
Yeah, because they healed up quickly.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just like, oh, okay. But as they're, having their confrontation, did they run off in that scene? Yeah, because he had made an attack on Lust.
Well, Edward had, sprayed him with everything. And of course, they were like, that's not going to stop us, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And Scar, Lust turns her attention to Scar and says, we're just trying to help you or whatever. And Scar pulls out a locket and asks Lust if she recognizes it. Mm-hmm. And, he's like, my brother gave it to you a long time ago. And she's like, I don't know what you mean. And he kind of like thrusts it forward in a type of way that it, kind of that slow motion type scene where it's kind of up in the air and she kind of focuses on it. And then she has a flashback of her human life.
Yeah. And that kind of put her into I don't know, something kind of did something to her, and then Gluttony ran off with her.
Yeah, she kind of passed out, and kind of like a shock to the system. She passed out, and then Gluttony took her and ran off. Of course, upset that, somebody hurt his lust.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if we've noticed it before. I mean, you may be able to tell me or not, but I don't remember seeing that mark on his tongue before Gluttony's.
Oh, yeah, it's been there.
Okay, so
yeah, that's every homunculus has the Ouroboros tattoo somewhere on their body.
Well, I remember that, but I guess I didn't recall his being on his tongue.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I may have seen it, may have noticed it, but I feel like it's been a minute since we recorded or watched. So
it has.
That's why I was like, I don't remember if that was a thing, but it was very prominent when they showed it.
Yeah.
But one thing I didn't mention, I was trying to remember how this scene played out, because there was a bit more of a conversation between them, because Ed actually did confront Scar about Nina.
Yes.
And asked him about that, and he said he did it out of pity or mercy, I guess, because he knew that it was just not going to be anything could be done to fix her, so he just put her out of her misery.
Which, and I mean, to be fair, we do... Like, he is forthright with that when it all happened in the episode, because when he placed his hand on Nina and, realized what she was, he says, talks about, what a pitiful creature, and, that he feels sorry, and he was going to release her so she could, be in peace, basically.
Yeah.
So you knew when he killed Nina, as horrible as it was, and as much as you want to hate that man for doing so, it's also, nothing could have been done.
Right.
She was suffering, and it would be a horrible existence. So at the end of the day, he did the best thing he possibly could do, which was to give her a very swift death.
Mm-hmm. So as Gluttony takes off with Lust, Lyra and Rose appear in the alleyway and ask Scar that Ed should hear what she has to say, even though Rose is not speaking because she is now mute. Yeah. So they all kind of go back to Rose's house, and Scar reveals to Ed that about his knowledge of Lust, because he recognizes her, or does seem to recognize her, and apparently his brother was did they say engaged, or they were just together?
Yeah, I think they were engaged, like they were, going to be married and have a family and live their lives together.
Right. In any case, Scar's brother was head over heels in love, possibly engaged to this woman who was Lust, or at least look goddamn just like her.
No, she was Lust.
And
before Lust became Lust.
Right. So, but obviously we find out, and obviously you can kind of piece this together at this point, is she died from an illness, so he became obsessed on trying to bring her back to life, tried human transmutation, it failed, and obviously they know how this works. So Ed kind of reveals to Scar that Lust was then created from the transmutation, and so I guess this is a question I do have, because I don't know if we've talked about it, and maybe we have, but again, it's been a minute. So it's not the transmutation they do turns that one into a homunculi, but it could be someone else doing it, and then the homunculi is then born from that. So like his brother doing the human transmutation didn't necessarily create lust in that moment, or did it?
I don't think it is. Well, honestly, I guess technically it would be that they are created in that moment, or at least maybe a little while after. Because if you look at Wrath, who is the little boy, who is the homunculus that was created from their teacher's son, he was the age that her child would have been.
Okay.
So I can't honestly remember if they ever explain like when exactly, the homunculus will pop up kind of thing. But we know that Wrath was living on that island for quite some time.
Right. I just felt like we got some information at one point that almost pointed like when they did their transmutation, it may have created the homunculi that was their sensei's child. Like almost kind of how that would have worked. Like they did something and that then in turn let that homunculi out or something of that nature. I don't know. I was trying to remember that little detail, and I felt like we had some kind of slight understanding that it's not a one-to-one comparison. Like when it happens, then that homunculi just appears.
Well, yeah, and I guess that could be, yeah.
But perhaps
because, like Ed said, he did see the child behind the gate. Because that's the one that took his arm and his leg, so he was already there before he was in the real world.
And I think that's what it was that made me think maybe that's what it was. Like there's always one waiting in the wings almost, and then when someone else pulls it, then they come back, and then the next time someone else, I don't know. But in any case, doesn't matter, I guess. So after they kind of have that little understanding, trying to explain what was going down, Lyra remembers hearing about this story from Dante, who was performing the human transmutation, which Ed suspected was greed. And Ed starts to wonder if since the homunculi know a lot of information, like they seem to know a lot about what's going on, there has to be someone controlling them, bringing them together. So Ed sees the pieces of hair inside the locket that Scar had, and he knows that homunculi are weak against the material that they're kind of modeled after, which is what happened to Lust. So Scar kind of continues his story, telling about the sudden attack after the war, or the outbreak of the war, I guess, where his brother came back knowing how to create the Philosopher's Stone, and they're kind of walking through a desert, and I think it was Kimbley that shows up out of the blue and is just on a warpath, just going to kill every Ishbalan because he doesn't give a shit, and kills one guy and then attacks Scar, and we see how he got his scar. Now, it started to make me wonder, do we know Scar's real name? Because that cannot be his real name.
No, that's not his real name.
I didn't think so. Because Kimbley just kind of puts his hand over his face and then pretty much blows the skin off into the X design we see on his face. And then he blows his arm off just to prove a point, I guess, because he's a dick. And then he goes to finish him off until Scar's brother sees the Philosopher's Stone that Kimbley has, because he's flaunting it like, well, if you had one of these, you could be awesome like me. But his brother essentially absorbs the Philosopher's Stone, and well, no, it was about that time, because I was thinking there was something else that happened, but at that time, there was another attack from the distance, from the army, and a tank that starts shooting in their direction, so Kimbley runs off in that moment. And then Scar passes out, and then when he wakes up, his face looks somewhat healed, and his arm is back. Come to find out that his brother had sacrificed himself to pretty much put Scar back together, and also admitted that he realized that Scar was probably in love with his girlfriend, which that seems to be a common trope in this. I've noticed there's everyone loves someone, and then there's unrequited love with someone else.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So at that point, Ed realizes through the story, because of the Philosopher's Stone absorption, I guess that's the best way to put it, he realizes that Scar's brother had transmuted the souls of the people within Ishbal that were dying, and then kind of passed the symbols and everything off to Scar on the arm, because that's where all the tattoos and everything were. So that explains why it can absorb the stones, and how Scar can use his alchemy the way he does, like in a very destructive way. So Scar remarks that his incomplete Philosopher's Stone isn't enough, and he still requires more bodies to actually have a full stone. And that was kind of what they're planning, is where we saw him drawing in the sand a few episodes back. He's been creating this big transmutation circle, I guess. And they're trying to lure in the army, the military, so they can pull a fast one on them, and the townsfolk can get away, but then the military will then be used to create a new Philosopher's Stone through Scar's arm or whatever.
Yep.
So obviously Ed is not cool about that, but it's about that point Rose just appears with a baby. we get no backstory on that.
Well,
I'm hoping we
you kind of do if you paid attention to what the people were saying. What
are we
Scar was saying.
Well, that's what I was a little curious about. They didn't go too deep into it, so I'm assuming this is a child she was not planning on having, if you catch my drift. And one of the reasons she's probably mute now is she was sexually assaulted. Okay, so they essentially point this out.
Basically pointing out. I mean,
in a very roundabout way.
Edward knows obviously that there are people within the military that are not good people. You know, he already knows this for certain.
Right.
However, he still thinks in that childlike brain that there are still more good than bad. But basically what he is realizing is that, the people he are fighting for and fighting to protect, and the military and everything, he was trying to stand behind, is just, they're not that good people. They're less good people than he thinks there are.
So Scar pretty much lays it out. Is like, I'm not going to waste my time or sympathy on these people. And pretty much told Ed, it's not really worth your time either. So you need to make a decision. And it's kind of where we leave them at the moment. And we go back to the military outpost where the Fuhrer has arrived. Everybody's kind of doing their big thing. Marta is sneaking about in the vents around the outpost, and she spots Bradley. So she kind of follows him through the vents to where she finds him in a secret meeting with Kimbley and Tucker. And Bradley is wanting Kimbley to lead more chimeras made by Tucker into Lior, and kind of force people out, but also make it look like it was a provoked attack from the people of Lior. So they look like the bad guys. And the military won't be accused of anything bad. And also Bradley said that he wants them to maybe kill Ed, if it's possible. Maybe turn him into a martyr since he's out that way. And, that just shows what a dick he is. I mean, I've lost any kind of, not that I ever thought anything good of Fuhrer Bradley, but now that just kind of clinched it. It was like, all right, yeah, you can go fuck yourself.
He's not a good person.
And Marta obviously overhears all of this, so she decides she's going to just take action, just like she tried before.
Yeah.
I give her props for being tenacious. She tries.
She's got a big old set of balls on her.
So she jumps out of the vents, attacks Bradley as he's leaving this meeting. And this is where we get a new revelation about this motherfucker, because he avoids every attack that she lobs at him. And come to find out, on his eye, under the eye patch, is a tattoo, the Ouroboros tattoo on his eye, which means that he can pretty much predict everything. And I guess this means he is also a homunculi. So he's a son of a bitch, lying piece of shit asshole.
Yes, he is a son of a bitch, lying piece of shit. But we already kind of knew he was a homunculi because, he told us in another episode.
Did he?
Yeah. It's definitely been a while, y'all, since we've watched this. But yes, the episode where Mustang finds out that he's a homunculus. And that he had been a homunculus this entire time. Remember, because he stormed into the whole meeting thing and was going to tell everybody that Bradley was a homunculus. And then he finds out that literally everybody in the top of the military already knows.
I don't remember this, but I'm sure we had this conversation. This is why I wish, we could watch these all in succession to where I can keep this information in my head.
But it's okay. It's okay. You're just finding out all over again, and it's still exciting.
Yeah. So anyway, Marta gets away from Bradley. She runs to tell Al the plans. And as soon as she gets, the moment she ran up to him, I was expecting immediate death. Like her to be shot in the head or something like that before she uttered a word.
Yeah.
But luckily, Al just popped off his head and said, climb in. She climbed in. We didn't quite hear what she said, but I'm under the assumption she told him everything he needed to know, because we kind of hear him gasp, like, what? And then about the moment he gathers all the information that he, I guess, is supposed to have, Bradley shows up, scares him. He turns around and just lobs his blade directly down into the armor, not through his armor, into it, like through the head, neck part, and just can only imagine how he stabbed her.
Yeah.
Because it had to, even if it was through the head or just through the gut, I mean, he had her dead to rights. She's crammed up in there, so it was just a devastating blow in through the armor, and he's just like, well, no, thanks for your help, Al.
Yeah.
And walks away. And we just are left pretty much watching her bleed out of Al.
Yeah.
While he sobs, and it's fucked up.
And it's it's so devastating. Because not only has Al grown close to Marta, but literally the last thing Greed had said to him was protect Marta. And she was the last one. And he literally was completely helpless.
And it really made me wonder why he didn't fight in that moment. Why he just... I'm assuming it was just sheer panic and he didn't think as to why he didn't react. Because he did kind of get jumped up on. And I'm sure he was still trying to process all the things that she just said about everybody and everything. And then suddenly Bradley's just behind him and he's just like, what the fuck?
Well, not only that, but they are already aware that Bradley isn't a good person. And on top of that, he literally had a sword inches away going inside of him where his blood seal and everything is.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that.
So he's probably panicking in so many more ways than he could portray.
Yep. So it left us off with another downer.
It is, because that final scene, and you just see Al, like, you know, sitting down on his knees and that, you know, just crumpled over. And when he holds his stomach, or where his stomach would be, which is where Marta is inside of him, and all the blood and everything, it's just, it's heart-wrenching.
And it really makes you think, how is he going to get her out of there? Or is he just going to carry around this body for a while?
Oh, no. I'm sure he would have to get her out of there and then get cleaned up, because
still, that's just like, pop your head off and you just reach in and just...
Oh, no, he can take his whole chest plate off and everything.
Still.
I know.
Just the whole act of having to do that in the first place. It's just like...
I know.
It's already bad enough she's dying inside you or dead inside you, bleeding out, but then now you have to remove this corpse from inside your armor.
Mm-hmm. Not just your armor, it's his body.
Yeah.
Inside his body.
It's messed up. And
Yeah.
Fuhrer Bradley can go fuck himself.
Oh, yeah. You'll absolutely freaking loathe him by the end of it all.
Okay.
I mean, you already hate him now.
Yeah.
But he is just... He has zero redeeming qualities.
Clearly. So, yeah, that's where they left us off. And I guess we're just going to have to keep going to see. Because we're down to the final 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to the movie, which I'm also intrigued by. I'm really anxious to see that.
Yes. I can't wait. It's been so long since I've watched it. I cannot wait.
And I don't know if I've mentioned this before, because I don't know if we recorded within the time that this came out or not. But I did hear some rumblings. Now, I don't know how true this is or like what the deal behind it is. But I know that we were talking about this show not being available on Blu-ray anymore. Hard to find. But there were rumors floating around that... Aniplex,
Aniplex.
Whoever is one of the distributors here, there were things saying that one of the distributors in Japan was making it unavailable over here, but then there were other things floating around saying that they were getting ready to do 4K restorations of several series that they had done previously, and one that they mentioned was the film version of like that comes after this show. Yeah. So when I saw that, I thought, okay, well maybe that's why they pulled back on the Blu-ray manufacturing, because maybe they're getting ready to do a remaster of that, and then they'll present that for people to buy versus the Blu-ray. Now, granted, that's a little unfair for those who don't have 4K capabilities. I get that. But maybe there's a reason. I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing out the information that I heard. So fingers crossed, maybe we get to see a 4K restoration of this series. But at least knowing that movie's coming, I think that's cool. At least they're taking some care of this old series. Mm-hmm. So, again, there was a whole list of others, but I don't have them. But I just wanted to share that while it was fresh in my mind. So if we have updates in the future of whatever's coming up, if that's something you people want to hear, we can do that. We can keep up with anime news every now and again as we hear it, because I get information here and there. Maybe people aren't listening or reading the internet like they're supposed to, because people say, well, the information's there, it's on the internet. But whatever. Anyway, that's all I got on this episode.
Alrighty, well, why don't you lead us out?
Well, as you know, you can follow us on your favorite podcasting app. Tell your friends to follow us on their favorite app. Give us those 5-star reviews if you would, please. Tell people that we're your favorite anime podcast. And if you think of ways that we could be better, like what would you prefer us to do? Do you want us to talk about shows in a different format or context? Tell us. Let us know what we're doing wrong so we can fix it. But maybe you just like listening to us. I don't know. Anyway, where you can find us on the internet, if you want a central hub for all these little clickety-clicks where you can find us on social medias and whatnot, pencilpaperproductions.com/inspired weeaboo. Links are in the show notes down below. And that's that.
All right, my little weebs. We will see you next time.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.